A NATO airbase in Germany raises security level due to a potential threat. Of course, we have actually talked about the attempt on the water supply of other bases, and of course now the Berlin NATO airbase in Germantown of Kursk has raised its security level based on intelligence information indicating a potential threat, it said late on Thursday. All non-mission essential staff have been sent home as a precautionary measure, the base said in a statement on the social media platform X, without giving any other details. Of course, this was the safety of our staff is our top priority. Operations continue as planned, was put out. So you basically have them saying anybody non-essential, anybody that is literally not watching or guarding something, anybody that it does not belong, any kind of staff, or if you're a receptionist, something like that, you are going to go home. That is because they believe there is some sort of threat to this base. Now, whether this is Gaza or whether this is a Fantastic Freddy being set up, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that any of the NATO countries get attacked or have a T attack or have an actual event from Russia, from China, from North Korea, any of these kinds of things happen, that is a World War III scenario. We all know that if we have NATO go to war, that means us. So again, we're not fighting a tiny, tiny country. We're talking about three major adversaries, now actually four. So this is a very big deal. A spokesperson for the base in Kursk said that the threat level had been raised to Charlie, the second highest of 4 states of alert, which is defined as an incident that has occurred or intelligence that has received indicating some form of T-error action against NATO organization or personnel is highly likely. Why? At the same, either at the German bases, why is this specifically Germany? Again, what is actually going on? It was the second time the base housing NATO's fleet of AWACS surveillance planes raised the security level after an incident last week when a military base in nearby Cologne was temporarily sealed off as authorities investigated a possible sabotage of the water supply. The same day, the base in Kursk also reported an attempted trespassing incident and that prompted a full sweep of the premises, where they essentially told any military staff or any staff at all, if you see somebody you don't know, report it immediately. In some cases, they said even basically snatch them and hold them until we get there. So very, very eerie details if these are true. We're going to talk about it and many, many more stories tonight. So stick around. This is going to be a good one. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, I hope everybody is having a very, very good day. Again, I just want to say hi to the people that have made it in right off the bat. Thank you, Ilea, for modding. JPass, Danielle Woodard, Kimbria. Thank you, Wonder Woman, April. I appreciate you being here at the last show as well. Sign Digger, Kimbria. Of course, we have Stefan. Thank you, Lori Smith. Thank you, of course, over on Rumble. Faith Parent, thank you for being over on YouTube. Colby Wilson. We, of course, have Bobby Sue. What is going on? One of our newest mods to be followed by one more very close. Long-time mod, but we'll see here a little bit later. Gillian Mason, Rip Curl Readiness, Briar Patch, Stealth Mode. Hey, we've got a lot of mods here. Wages World. If you guys want to check out any of the mods channels, you can always go over to marfooglenews.com/friends. You have a lot of great creators there. Trinity just did a live stream last night talking about some really interesting stuff. You can also go to her Twitter and find a lot of great stuff as well. Again, Wages, you got Ilea, RGL Harris, Rip Curl, Lisa R. Hall, Jammer, of course, Optical Gem. We, of course, have CJ Blaze, Chance Paladin, and Bones. All of which have been here for a very long time, so make sure to give them a follow. All right, let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So the Sabotage, obviously we covered the Sabotage. It seems like everybody is really talking about a million other things, from the new videos of the attempted life taking of our former president. People are talking about the Tates. People are talking about the DNC. But then there's these kind of events, which the majority of people, and I know that most of our community is completely watching all of this stuff. You guys are catching this right as it happens, and you are paying attention. But all of our friends and family are not seeing these kind of events. This is an event. If this gets worse, this is a kickoff event. This is a active war if something greater happens. Who knows? Dex, the event with their water supply, if they found out who it was, that could have already been an active war. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah, it very well could be. And they started to point the finger at Russia. And I think we're going to see more and more of this, whether it be, organic or whether it be something that's created. Either way. But look, this is a big deal because it's a NATO base, more so because we've got all of our AWACS surveillance planes there, and other equipment that's very critical. And who knows what else we may not know about that may not be publicized that's at that base. So anytime it's NATO specific, that's probably a little bit higher of a threat level than just a base against that particular country. And it doesn't mean that every base against that country is a NATO base, but some of those bases have NATO command and NATO equipment specifically assigned to NATO, which brings it to a different level, so to speak, when it comes to, say, Russia, who's obviously targeting NATO directly.
And one thing I think of is there's all of these smaller events that happen, and they're happening to our allies, or there's protests in different countries, and you see there's kind of somebody or a group that's leading them. A lot of folks are talking about this here with potential groups or leaders of groups with megaphones leading protests that you see completely covered from head to toe. They're basically anonymous people who are really pumping up and really pushing this kind of stuff in every country. In every country, you've seen the same thing. We have also seen kind of this divide between this and that side. You see, of course, these people that are fully masked up, all wearing khakis and blue shirts coming out, and essentially they've been coming out of U-Haul vans, the same kind of U-Hauls that have been dropping off protesters, dropping off folks, and they are supposedly these supreme people, assist, those kind of people. And almost all of X and everybody, including the people on the right side, are saying, these guys aren't with us. Like, these guys aren't us. On the other side, you, of course, have people from the left side of the aisle saying, hey, those guys aren't with us. These people doing destruction. So you have all this destruction. You have all of these attacks. Russia, for instance, that event that happened at the concert hall, the U.S. warned U.S. citizens, said, hey, for the next 72 hours, watch out. Don't go to concert halls. And then about a week and a half later, you have this big event. What's even crazier is that people don't question, like, what if? What if there are parties on the Western side that actually may have had, some sort of scripting in things like that? People can't imagine that because of how horrible events are, but countries are doing this kind of stuff to each other all of the time. Not to mention you have three-letter agencies literally supplying one cartel or the other. If they have a bigger problem with this cartel, they'll give weapons to this cartel. It's super crazy because at the same time, our country is telling us, hey, you guys all need to turn in your bang-bangs, but at the same time, they talk nonstop about how they're going to arm this country, that country. Well, we have to arm this. We need to give them the tools to defend themselves. But yet we're not supposed to defend ourselves. It's insanity. And this is where we are right now. It's really getting bad. And then Russia begins installing concrete shelters in the Kursk region amid Ukrainian incursion. So they're actually setting up a defensive line. Dex, do you want to talk about this kind of defensive line they're setting up with these concrete incursions? Or I'm sorry, concrete separations.
Yeah, exactly. So the concrete lines that they're setting up is specific. And I've lost that article, so I don't have it in front of me, Adam. I'm sorry. But the shelter bunkers that they're setting up in the Kursk region, if that's what we're talking about, the concrete shelters they're actually creating, it's in response to the invasion, so to speak, as to how far UKR has made it in specifically to Russia. So that's kind of an interesting point that they've gone so far as to do that. The authorities in Russia's western Kursk region, they've started installing the concrete shelters to protect civilians. And they said this has started since the incursion began on August 6th, but they've said that there's been a lot of, attacks or civilians that have been hurt or targeted in this. And of course, they're going to state that. And I'm not going to say if they're right or wrong when they say that, because in conflict, there's always innocents that get hurt, and that's probably the case no matter what. But the governor, Alexei Smirnov, stated that 60 bus stations in the city of Kursk would be equipped with these shelters. The city of Kursk has a population of 450,000, and towns of the Zelenogorsk and Kuchakov will also have shelters installed. So they are scrambling to install these shelters. Now, one thing I think about when they do this is this potentially to get people in shelters because they're going to use tacticals to, drive the enemy out. That would be pretty devastating, but it could also be a plan. It could be something they're doing. And if this is the one way, they went down a path of trying to evacuate as many people as they could, but now they still have people there. So if they're building these concrete shelters, is it something they're doing in a hurry? And then they're going to come in and maybe even use a tactical. I don't know. That's what scares me about it.
And that's exactly what we thought may happen. We talked about the potential of why they were evacuating the citizens right off the bat when they came through. And they're right here that they smashed through the border, forcing the evacuations of hundreds of thousands of people. As far as I've heard two different stories on how they actually got through. The first story that came out, it was 300 soldiers, and everybody's like, it's only 300. It's in the middle of nowhere. But say at 300, they're making it like they smashed through thousands of soldiers and got through. There was a Russian blogger that claimed that basically the 300 went to a really, really, crazy spot on the border where there were only 6 employees or something. I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me, but I guess if that was a border crossing or something like that and they only had 6 guys working or something, then yeah, they go through there. They go into areas that are small, tiny towns. They start kind of setting a perimeter out, growing it. And then, of course, Russia could respond quick, but then they take out the 3 bridge. They must have went in beforehand, had the bridges kind of set up to blow, and then did that so it would make it a lot harder for Russia to come in. When they did that, we said, well, everybody's looking at this thinking Russia's just going to blow them out of the water. They could send missiles, satellite-guided missiles right there and just take out all of them. They could also put a Predator-type drone, whatever their version of that, up and just take these guys out if they did not also bring air defenses with them. I've recently seen a video of kind of a Black Hawk type helicopter. I forget what the Russia's version is called, being taken down by Ukraine air defenses. Do they have those same kind of air defenses in Russia right now in this, incursion? And as far as if they use a tactical, all of the requirements to their doctrine, their legalese that they put out, and they said, here's to the world, we're a major country, we're part of the UN, we're part of this, we're part of that. We are saying in our legal documents that if they do this, then this is grounds for us to use a tactical. Almost all of those have been crossed. So they could use a tactical nuke, and I'm pretty sure that it would be pretty easy to use it, especially on their own country. If they put it in their own country, of course, if they took a bunch of civilians out, then they could, war crimes, or I don't know what they could call that, if they took out a bunch of their own civilians. Obviously, they wouldn't be getting garnering any support from their own countrymen. But that's why we're seeing now they're putting in these temporary shelters. They're essentially trying to get everybody out. I think that we're going to see one of the first strikes. It might even be inside of Russia. A tactical nuke goes boom and takes out a bunch of Ukrainians all at the same time. What's even more freaky is if there's any kind of American PMCs there, like the claims are saying, then you're taking out Americans with it. I guess we'll see, and we'll follow it along. Everybody is debating whether this is all fear this and scare that. I honestly think that this is kind of on the low. Meanwhile, everybody is being shined right in the face with the DNC, with this, with Oprah, with that. And it's much more interesting for people to clown on Barack and Oprah and all of that. But meanwhile, the next phase of all of our lives, and I'm talking about the whole world, is happening right now, right under our noses. These forums that are meeting right now, they're deciding our future. And maybe but 99% of people are not following what that forum is deciding. And the things that they're deciding are such drastic changes, they will have to tear this whole thing down to build it up again. And then Russia keeps trying to replace the bridges that Ukraine destroys. Ukraine is taking those out too. So I do see that this is very possible, especially with the U.S.'s help or NATO's help. If you have NATO infrastructure that has been moved into Russia, taking out a bridge is not a big feat compared to, taking out an early warning system, something like that. Of course, you on Wednesday, they said that Ukraine says it's destroying Russian pontoon bridges in Kursk before they can even be constructed. It says on Wednesday, Ukrainian special forces released a video compilation that appeared to show attacks on several Russian efforts to build pontoons, of course, or temporary floating bridges. Now, they actually have tons of different systems now. I've seen Russia do at least 3, but some of them have a pontoon on the front of a boat. For rivers, they can actually keep a boat running, and they'll have multiple of these boats with a bridge pontoon on the front of it, almost like a tugboat with a part of bridge on front of it. They'll all line up, and they'll actually be able to create a crossing. They're saying that these are getting destroyed. Where do Russian pontoon bridges disappear in the Kursk region? Wrote Ukraine's Special Operations Forces Telegram. It says, adding that its soldiers accurately destroy them. So we don't know what, again, is Ganda or what is truth. I think only time will tell what ends up being real throughout this, historic conflict right here. The claim comes after reports Ukrainian forces had destroyed 3 permanent bridges over the Sym River in western Russian region. I just want to point out, like Dex said, if they're also destroying the temporary bridges, if they're destroying their ability to get over at all, how many options do they have left? Hence, moving in concrete shelters. Kind of seems like the next move is going to be pretty obvious. Remember, if you have any questions about anything that we have here, a full bibliography is available over on marfooglenews.com. You can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document here. So if you have questions, you say, hey, where did this come from? Then all you have to do is pop over to our website. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. If you want to protect your cars, your trucks, your motorcycles against an actual electromagnetic pulse attack. Again, this is something that can actually knock out our entire grid here in the U.S. Pretty much any country that is a Western ally, this is a threat to your country. Especially many of the countries that are watching outside the U.S. that have even more of a dated power system than we do. Ours is vulnerable. We know this. Our power system was one of the last things that got money, and it's starting to get some work done. Like Jammer said, he actually saw what he said was an EMP Shield putting up, or an EMP Shield product being put up on a commercial side of the transformers. On that end, of course, if you want to get your own stuff protected, that's up to you. No government agency is going to subsidize these. They're not going to put these in a law for them to put them in all new houses, or at least not yet. They should. That's my opinion. But if you do want to protect yourself, this is a super easy device to put in any car that you want to protect, any truck, motorcycle, boat, RV. If you're in a motorhome or have a motorhome that is your get out plan, then you want to have one of these on the engine. Again, it's 3 wires, green to ground, red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, and then bolted into the side of your chassis. It's very, very easy. At under 10 minutes, you don't have to be a mechanic. You just got to know where the battery is. Again, marfuglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. They also have them for the Flex Tactical, Flex 1500, and of course your home. There's so many different devices for everything. This, we believe, will save lives and get people home to their families to bug in and get them out to bug out. So make sure to go check it out, and code MARF will save you $50 off per device and help our small channel. We're on our own against behemoths, and as we are covering controversial events, this is not going to be shown to you over 500 videos from CNN. It's quite the opposite. So thank you guys for sharing us out more than anything else. We appreciate each and every person that has come. And thank you, by the way, Callie, thank you for the super chat. And then Hollis Kinsey, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. Darren, thank you for subscribing. Hugo, thank you for subscribing. Kill Bill, thank you for subscribing. Barbarian, thank you for subscribing. Brittany Adamovich, and Susan Honecker, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. Dex, do you want to go over Ukraine hits Moscow in major drone attack, Russia says?
Okay, so now we have confirmation of what they're saying is the largest drone attack. We heard it from the mayor, but I think it's happened even more so beyond just that. It's continued. And so they said on Wednesday, so just yesterday, that Russia described one of its largest drone attacks in the war, being claimed by the number of unmanned vehicles they shot down. So they've claimed up to about 45 have been taken out. 11 of those drones were taken out by air defenses over the region of Moscow, 3 of them over the neighboring province of Kolga Oblast, and that's according to Russia. The rest were downed by air defenses in the regions that bordered Ukraine, including Kursk, and where Ukraine is pushing forward on a major offensive. So I guess the original report was that there was a pretty large drone attack. Now they're saying it's the largest ever, and they're confirming it. It's coming out of Russia officially as this is what's happened. So, it seems, I wouldn't say the tides have turned, but what I would say is it seems like there's been a major shift since the West has gotten more equipment to UKR, since more funding has shown up. And then with this sort of surprise incursion into the north of Ukraine into the southern area of Russia, that incursion that was sort of caught everybody off guard. I think it's sort of got the whole, conflict in a weird position now. And now you start to see these drone attacks, and you've got the reporting of all of the fleet that has been destroyed over time by UKR. It's easy for the West to paint this picture that UKR is, winning and making great strides. And the question I sort of have is, how long will this last? It's one thing for the media to say it, and they'll say it till the cows come home, even when they're, if they're potentially on their last leg and not going to make it, they'll still say they're winning. That's just the way the media seems to work in this position. But it doesn't seem like there's much in the way right now of a massive response on Russia's part. And I think we got to wait and see, because if that doesn't happen anytime soon, then maybe there's some validity to the effect of what UKR is actually doing with NATO's help right now. What if,
and hear me out, this does sound crazy, but we have to look at all options. We've seen, and this is kind of where part of my heart and intuition goes. You've seen France, you've seen Estonia, you've seen Germany, you've seen all of these things kind of setting it up. They're all saying that Russia's doing this, and France and others have made comments. Macron has said that, yeah, we might have to jump in there. We might have to get our hands dirty. We might have to go to war with Russia. If they were looking at options on the table, if they are telling all of these leaders, and if they're looking at data, intelligence that, who knows, could be faked, and they're telling all of these intelligence agencies are saying, this is intelligence we got that Russia's going to take. They're telling us. Every country in NATO is saying they're going to try to take all of Estonia and Latvia and all of this back. They're going to try to take the Soviet Union back. If they're telling us this, and if they truly do believe this, or they've gotten leaders to believe this, then they're going to say, well, what are our options? What if the options on the table, they say, well, we got to, basically snip the head off the snake before this gets bad. We need to go and invade Russia. I said this at the very beginning, and it sounded nuts. I even thought, man, this sounds nuts. Why would we ever invade Russia? Well, Ukraine isn't just Ukraine. If most of you are already on the page that Ukraine is, held up by NATO and the U.S. This conflict would be over if it was not for NATO and the U.S. The NATO infrastructure and U.S. has helped directly guide everything into Russia. All of the strikes that have been done on Russia have been helped by the U.S. Infrastructure and the NATO infrastructure. So you have the U.S. directly involved with their satellite data, everything else, helping them take out Russians. This isn't a proxy war, but where, Russia's supporting this small group and we're supporting this small group and the small groups are fighting. You've got Ukraine directly versus Russia, and we think the war against Russia, I think that Russia is the proxy for China. And I think that you could easily see NATO go in with Ukraine. All of a sudden, you've got NATO in Russia, and they're fighting. And then you've got China in Russia. You've got North Korea going into Russia. You've got the actual battlefield in Russia. Instead of it being in Europe, it actually ends up in Russia. It's a crazy thought, I know, but look at what is happening. It sounds absolutely crazy to say. And people would go, no, but what if? When you see the map of how NATO's moved forward, a lot of folks on X and things are saying, well, it looks like they're actually the ones getting kind of pushed back. That very well could be. But a lot of us are going, well, if Russia, China, and North Korea and Iran ran the world, I probably wouldn't want to be in that world. So it's like you're kind of picking the lesser of two evils. And hopefully at some point, the U.S. and other Western nations can self-right themselves if they go back to what they kind of started with. But I don't know if that's going to happen anymore with groups like this. So here is a video that you guys need to watch. Again, this is the annual meeting of the new champions in Dalian. This is in China. So this is everybody's favorite Count Dooku here, talking about, of course, forcing nations, cultures, and elites, everybody into collaboration. What do you think how do you think this works when they're telling China, an aggressor, an adversary to the United States, saying, hey, we're telling the CCP here, the CCP is all lined up. We need to force collaboration of the entire world to get all of these things done. How do you force collaboration, people? Again, how do you force it? This is it's very, very crazy. Let me see here, and I'm gonna unmute and turn this down here.
There's many opportunities. It's rapidly transforming our production and our lives.
Let me see if I have find a spot here. To drive future economic growth, we must embrace innovation, force the collaboration across sectors, businesses, regions, nations, and cultures to create a more peaceful, inclusive, and sustainable and resilient future. That's a bunch of blah, blah, blah for we are going to make everybody step in line. And he's saying this not to a group of multiple countries, not to the world. He's saying this to China. What do you think that means in the greater scheme of things, and what is happening? In the video I just put out the other day about all of these signs that something is going on right next to the base. You've got this southern border. You got this. You got people flying in. You got this. You got somebody possibly being into office. All of these things, it seems to most of us that have eyes, something big is happening right in front of us. And we're talking about a 2-month time frame that we're going to see a lot of this start to roll. This is a big deal. And I hope that friends and family, you get this video out to them. Again, I don't try to say every video, share this with everybody you know. This video is important because there's a lot of good information in tonight's video. Yeah, it's getting nuts. Dex, let's talk about Modi, Polish leaders ahead of landmark trip to Ukraine.
All right. Well, here we have the biggest fence sitter, who actually now is the largest buyer of Russian oil. If you guys didn't know, I believe China has pulled back on buying oil from Russia, not completely, but pulled back enough that now India is the number one buyer. And maybe that there's been a lot of issues with settling money between China and Russia lately. So maybe that's part of what could be hurting Russia in the wartime economics at the moment. But nonetheless, Modi, the president of India, is set to travel and meet with Polish leaders. And so they're calling it a rare trip. He's expected to visit UKR, a first for his country's history. He's coming in weeks after he traveled to Moscow for talks with Putin in a symbolic first bilateral visit of the Indian Prime Minister's new term, a trip that drew criticism from Kiev, of course, because they didn't think that made sense. But I tell you, he's a fence sitter. He goes goes all around, but it's also a member of BRICS. So you got to remember that. There may be a little bit more allegiance to the BRICS side, although they do have their conflict with China. So India is the wild card. It's also the country that's still growing its population where China is decreasing. It's also a pretty wealthy economy. So anyway, Modi's going there. Maybe he's trying to bring about a peace negotiation. I doubt anything from him personally is going to happen, but he is sticking his nose in the middle of the European conflict. And when we see somebody in that position do it, it's worthy of paying attention to what may come out of it. We're just getting the notice that he's going in. So hopefully we'll hear what comes from it, if anything, the next day or two.
And as you guys know, in India, I've said this a million times, so I won't bore you with it. India drills with Russia at the same drill, Navy drill, massive. They have such a huge problem with China, but yet they had ships right next to each other in the same drill. They're part of course, BRICS, which is led by China. Of course, then you also have the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They are part of that. So they're financially tied, they're physically tied, but they still have this battle where they constantly battle over this border of the Himalayas, where both of them say, no, our border goes here. And then, of course, China goes, no, our border goes here over your border. So they're both arguing over this. And here is just my intuition talking. I think one or the other is going to say, you know what, if you give us this, we'll give you that. We get to keep this. You help us here. We'll help you there. We're the two biggest countries by population ever. Let's work together to take these guys who have been holding us down forever. I think something like that is happening. I think that there's been a lot of big events in the world, especially in just the last 12 years since the world found out that the USA was spying on absolutely every country, and really personal, like into presidents' phones and things. I think it pissed off a lot of people. Again, that was part of NSA and all of this stuff that was going on to stop error. But yet, if you go back to that event, I'm sure most of these countries have the real scoop on what happened there, and the Patriot Act, all of these things that got kicked off. And it's like all of the inconsistencies with what happened in 2001. There's tons of stuff. The new generation has no idea. Luckily, people are still sharing that on X and still sharing out some of the really crazy things. But again, that started off 20-year war, a war that many didn't come home normal from. It's really sad that so many people fought that, and they went truly believing they're fighting for freedom. They're fighting against these bad people. I knew people back then. I knew a senior. I was in high school. I knew my friend's big brother. The day that 2001 happened in September, he said, "I'm joining." He went. I never saw him again. He went off and joined. He almost immediately started boot camp. I never saw him again. He went to Iraq. He went to 3 tours. He never came back. It's like that day, he in his heart, and back then, if you remember when everybody had flags flying, we were all united, that kind of stuff. It's like these soldiers that go and do this, it's because we truly believe that it is for a good purpose. With India and, of course, China and Russia and Iran and all of these countries, they want to take us down a notch. So whether you believe in what is going on, whether you support a war right now, I hope that people do support our soldiers right now, because they're about to head into a hell pit. And I think that we are highly underestimating our enemies. Most of the people in our community are so patriotic that they think we're invincible. And that is not a good way to look at a war. It's not a good way to think, especially when they're telling us point blank that we're at the bottom of our barrels. You can see the floor in our warehouses. And this is because somebody has gotten in, many people have gotten in, that are making bad decisions for us. It is not unpatriotic to question your country. It is the most patriotic thing you can do. I firmly believe that, and I think more people need to start asking. Of course, JB tells Netanyahu that the Strip ceasefire deal is urgent. Dex, so JB is saying, hey, we got to do this. It's really urgent.
Well, yeah, he's still hung up on, and he being Netanyahu is still hung up on this whole deal about the corridor. I think it's called the Philadelphia corridor between Egypt and the Strip. It's that area that basically where Rafah is, that Philadelphia corridor. They don't want to give it up. Netanyahu says Israel has plans to maintain troops in the Philadelphia corridor, and that's not a negotiating part. And of course, the other side is saying, oh no, we want to patrol it ourselves. We don't need you there. And I understand, I think most people understand, that is the area in which they obviously believe the largest amount of infiltration over the years has come in with equipment and missiles and all the things that they've been able to bring into the Strip and then use against Israel. It's typically come in through that section. It's not like it's being smuggled in through Israel's side on the north, right? Or on the eastern side, where Israel controls that land. It's really coming in from the southern side where Egypt is controlling. At least that's been the assumption and what they have talked about. So it makes sense that Israel would want to patrol that, as opposed to just saying, oh yeah, you can self-police it. We trust you. Because what good did that do in the past? Well, it did was create more weapons flowing in disguise and getting into there, whether it was underground or inside of food shipments and other things. So that's the thing. And our current president, along with our current VP, joined the call, and they were urging him to, hey, quit negotiating that. You need to just give up and let them have it. And Netanyahu is saying no. And this is a big deal because, I mean, there's many reasons it's a big deal. You've got the potential of the captives being released if the ceasefire deal is reached. You also have the potential that a conflict of a greater level won't spark off if a deal is reached. But if a deal is not reached, then you pretty much have the entire Middle East ready to erupt. They're already ready to do it over the taking out of one leader and a handful of others, and they're just laying there waiting to strike. And if this deal falls apart and there's pretty much no more chance to go back to the table, which Israel has said this is going to be the last time, they're just going to go through and finish up the job, then you got to have a sneaking suspicion that the rest of the Middle East is going to come on And when I say that, I mean all of the people that support Iran, from the Houthis to the people in Lebanon, et cetera, and who knows, maybe even Turkey, would join in and against Israel in this. And I think that's a big deal. So this, in the coming days, if this deal completely falls out and it's over with, then I think we have to look for a greater war. If the deal is reached and they come about peacefully there, then we could possibly look at this thing not getting as hot as it's expected to be.
Now, another thing that may hit, of course, almost all of us, is the Canadian freight rail halt will roil North American supply chains. Canada's two main freight rail companies locked out around 10,000 of their Canadian unionized workers early on Thursday, starting an unprecedented simultaneous work stoppage that will grind almost all railway freight movement in the country to a halt. Canadian National Railway Company and Canadian Pacific Kansas City have said that their rail networks south of the border will continue to operate, but industry groups fear that a work stoppage would have far-reaching effects on the movement of goods and commodities across North America. So just one more thing, and like every event like this ends up affecting not only our prices on everything, on top of the inflation, on top of shrinkflation, and all of these other things that are happening right now. Now you have obviously huge chunks of railway that are shut down or stoppages. This only adds. It's like we're getting just choked out. It's going to get us to the point where almost everyone is desperate. I mean, it has really been incredible. CN CPKC's coast-to-coast rail networks in Canada connect south of the border and serve as important supply chain links to trade corridors and ports across North America. The networks intersect with those of U.S. rail operators such as BNSF Railway, Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, and CSX, facilitating the movement of billions of dollars worth of goods and commodities through ports and warehouses across the continent. So yeah, again, it's how this affects the United States. Around a third of the traffic moved by the two Canadian rail companies crosses the border with the United States. So I believe absolutely 100% of this, and this is going to affect everything. And it will usually happen. It's not going to affect prices the second it happens. It's usually down the road. It could be weeks, it could be months, but you'll see all of a sudden little things that you don't even notice. Everything has been incremental. Not to mention, you can look over 2 years and it's massive. But if you look daily, it's 10 cents at a time. I do want to point out there was something that has happened in the last week, or that has come out. I don't know how long it has been discovered or when the actual announcement happened, but Kroger teamed up with an AI company. And Kroger owns Fred Meyer's, it owns QFC. Here, those are the two that I know. A lot of other, I don't know if it's cash and carry or something. And there's other companies that they own, a bunch of them. They are a conglomerate. So they own a ton of these different companies. What they are doing and what they're suggesting, it has a lot of fear and concern around it. Because essentially what it is the new systems say it's in place. Digital tags, so instead of those paper tags that say the price for your toilet paper, will be digital tags. Not only that, that will be partnered with a system that can be also helped by AI and possibly even cameras and facial recognition to essentially help them believe what the typical person would be able to pay. Now, if this gets super personalized, the fear is that, say you walk into the store, it catches your face. It even keeps track of your path through that said store. It knows that you buy said object, and it knows your loyalty points and everything else. You've basically put your number in for those gas points. It knows exactly what you buy. It even knows what you buy on impulse. It knows the things that you catch on the end of the aisle and go, hey, that's a good deal. I can't pass that up. Over years of using those loyalty points, you have stocked up data. Not to mention they can buy it from somebody else if you haven't, and they will get data on you. They'll be able to change and mark that up on the fly. So say on a hot day you walk in, the fear is that you walk in on a hot day over 90, say you're in Seattle. then QFC would raise the water prices by 15 cents. If they do that all day over 4 days of a heat wave, they're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars extra. And it's all changed on the fly. This is going to be teamed up with AI, and if it is teamed up with facial recognition, which you know is coming, it's just a matter of time, then you could literally walk through a aisle just like Minority Report, and it will say, "Hello, Adam," and it will actually give you a price for things that you buy most often. Who knows, it might even give you a discount, but a discount on stuff that you do buy, and you go, I gotta get it, it's on sale. You weren't going to buy it that day, but since now it is now 20 cents off for your personalized sale that they're just looking out for you, now you buy one more thing that you don't actually need when you go into that store. This is a system that I guarantee once it is rolled out, almost every store in the world will follow suit. This is something that people should be fighting. We should not have cameras every single place we go. But again, that is what these corporations want. When it comes down to it, they want to squeeze all of us for every single penny. Dex, go ahead.
You know, it's interesting. Walmart has been doing this for ages. All of them actually do it to some extent, but they've been doing it with, basic algorithms and basic computers and obviously human power to try to determine, which is why you'll see one price for a product in one store and you can drive down the road to another store, another Walmart, and see the exact same product with a different price. Because they try to maximize the pricing that they can get based off of the data they have of the people that shop at that location. And you're spot on. So by taking AI, that's just going to improve their efficiency at doing that. It's going to make it happen so much faster and better. So they will probably have to use less people and have less errors and get more accurate results with whatever algorithm they're trying to produce to maximize these profits. That's why you'll see, even Walmart will say you can't price match another Walmart. You can price match, any other store if you want, or you can try to, but you can't price match our own stores because we have separate pricing at each store. And a lot of these are starting to do it, from grocery chains to big box stores around the nation. And it's all to try to improve their bottom line.
And if you actually think about rain checks, so say you're walking down the aisle and you see something that sale tags at grocery stores. So again, let's see here. Let's go back. Images. So say you see these, and these are actually popping up in Targets already, these digital. So again, you completely, as a company, you get rid of all rain checks. If you've ever seen, it says it's only $5, you go to ring it out at the counter and it says $15. You're like, wait, the sticker went back. How many of you been in this position where you've gotten to the counter, you see something rung up and you're like, no, the sign says this. And then, of course, half the time you end up going, well, I'll go take a picture of it. I've done this a million times, especially in the last 2 years, because it's expensive. You go back and take a picture of it, show it to them, and they void it and they change it, right? Because they're going to honor it because the sign still says it. That would be negated. These digital things being changed in the second. I mean, they could literally change depending on if somebody is in that aisle or not. They will know your demographics. They will know where you live. They will know what area. If you live in, I'm only using examples here. Say if you live in Ballard in Seattle. If you live in Blue Ridge, you live in a $2.5 million house. You can afford $15 or $20 for a 6-pack of toilet paper. Meanwhile, somebody who lives, say, in a Section 8 housing thing, they might lower it down to $8, but still $2 more than they would charge anybody else because they know that you might be paying for it on some sort of funds, right? So, this is disturbing, but it is just the tip of the iceberg, and it is what is coming. It's already here. You can see it at stores, Targets, really. And now you're seeing digital ads everywhere. You're seeing screens, television screens, almost in every store. You're literally seeing video ads almost everywhere you go now. We're in the future, and we're in Minority Report, and sadly, it's only going to get worse. Thank you so much, Mitch Mouth. I appreciate your super chat. Thank you so much. It says, thanks, Marf and Dex, for what you do for us. Hey, thank you. Thanks, Don White. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Marv and Dex, for all your hard work. Midgemouth, thank you. Colby Wilson, rally round the family. Pocket full of shells. Much love. What's going on, Colby? And then Don White, thank you so much. Callie, Neil Nelson, Ilea, Bill Fortenberry, Carol, Mimi Carstel, and so many more. Thank you guys for joining. And then China says it is seriously concerned about the U.S. nuclear strategic report. This report, which we covered when it came out, was supposedly leaked. And what this leak basically portrays is that the U.S. is planning for a response or a coordinated challenge from not only China, but Russia and North Korea. They don't, for some reason, include Iran in most of the paperwork there, but they're essentially looking at a three-front war. And they have prepared a nuclear plan for it. Now, of course, China has actually responded. We just did a video on this. Essentially, the U.S., this is according to China, the U.S. is peddling the China nuclear threat narrative, finding excuses to seek a strategic advantage. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesman said, according to a report by New York Times, U.S. President JB approved in March a highly classified nuclear strategic plan that focused on China's quickly growing arsenal, but also seeks to prepare the U.S. for possible coordinated nuclear challenges from Russia, China, and North Korea. It says that China is seriously concerned about the relevant report and the facts that have fully proved that the United States has constantly stirred up the so-called China nuclear threat theory in recent years. Meanwhile, we know that there is a lot of events going on with actual nationals from that country, and I've put a whole video together on all of this. I think something massive is brewing. And I believe in the next 2 or 3 months, we're really going to see this world either do a head dive or start, wading water. I don't know which is going to happen, but I will say this. This is news from a prepper standpoint. I hope that all of you have a basic plan. I hope that all of you have kind of your stuff taken together, stuff put together and your ducks in a row. I do want to point out a person from Oklahoma, and I don't believe I got permission to say their name, but let me, I did take screenshots of this. They said that essentially that these things are getting put up in different offices. There are plans for a tea attack, and it's in Oklahoma, and these are pamphlets that they are actually posting in different locations. Create a plan to shelter in place. So these are the, let me see if I can show you the cover here. You can actually probably Google it if you see this. Ready Oklahoma has put out the ready.ok.gov. Preparing makes sense. These Get Ready Now pamphlets apparently are popping up everywhere. Why are they all of a sudden preparing for something? I don't know. But again, these pamphlets essentially they're popping up in government dentist's office, I believe, dentist's office, other places, and trying to remember where they said it was coming from, though. It was a very odd place where they ended up posting it. But this isn't the only report about Oklahoma. So I don't know what's going on with Oklahoma, but as you guys know, I do have extended family in Tulsa, so that had me concerned. I also have a lot of family in Ohio. Ohio has had a lot of weird drills and exercises, a lot of hiring of certain people to pretend, and you just wonder, what is going to be the real deal? We did a video on, of course, this over on Marfoogle News, our sister channel. So I highly recommend that you guys go check out that video. We talk about their growing nuclear arsenal and essentially what we think is going on. There's other articles in that show that team up directly with it. And keep in mind when you watch that, what we just talked about with, of course, the W and the E and the F with Mr. Schwabe. Very concerning. Dex, thank you for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Much love, brother. Great job.
And remember, go check out Energy if you don't have a backup power supply. This is our recommendation and a very exciting thing for anybody. That's the only downside. And I will say this. This is the toughest, the most amazing, the most unbelievable generator as far as it's modular, it's expandable. You can basically have any feature you want. If it doesn't already have it, you can get a mod with it. So you can create the system you want, and you can create the amount of batteries you want. Just like Legos, you can stack them up. You can lock them in place with 1,500-pound latch system, steel reinforced frame, water and dust resistant, and of course, built-in heaters into every battery. It can sit like they have it in the snow here, and it will still run fine. They're silent. You can go gray man in any kind of situation. You do not want people hearing from 3 blocks away. If everything hits the fan, the power goes out, people are going to hear that generator, gas-powered generator, from a mile away, and they're going to come and try to take it. This is a good thing to have if you're trying to stay low. Not only that, it's going to have unlimited power as long as you have the sun come up. You team this up with some solar panels. You can even daisy chain them just like Christmas lights. You can have up to 12 with the, of course, supercharger mod. You also have a rapid charger mod that you can actually plug in. You can plug into the wall and charge each battery in as little as 40 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes, which is insane. It's 1,000 watt hours per battery. It's an incredible system. Again, but this is not the news. And again, this is something awesome. The only downside, I will say this again, the only downside has been the weight. And people they have not been happy about the weight. The weight is because we're in a war with resources, and we're also in a war with a country that has a monopoly on a lot of the lithium technology and a lot of this the tech that goes into this. Just like antibiotics, almost all of it's made in China. With these, what it was happening is they would get certain components that had to be made in China, and then they would bring them to the United States, and they would do all of the programming. So there's absolutely no chance that China can put any kind of backdoors in this. There is no internet. There's no nothing. You cannot do anything to these. You can't hack them and turn them off. But that meant that China, of course, which was making competing units that might be turned off on day zero, again, those units, of course, were getting filled before any other company. So people were waiting at the very beginning up to 7 months for these generators. And I do believe these are going to save lives. But now, Energy has announced a partnership with the Department of Defense and, of course, Ultion, and they're going to start making these here. They are going to actually be making these power stations, and they're going to be moving it over. So it's going to get faster and faster. And this also says something, too. This is a sign that they're moving these really critical things out of China. That should tell you something alone. Not to mention, you've got EMP Shield that's worked with DOD, DHS, everything else. They work directly with Energy to make a protected unit for the EMP Shield. But now Energy is now working with the DOD. They're also shipping these out for the U.S. Army. These are the same generator for the STTR Phase 2 contract. So if you want the best of the best and you don't want anybody turning it off on you after day zero, then this is the one you get. It is worth every penny of the investment. It is made with the highest quality stuff. I wouldn't recommend otherwise. You can go get the competitor that might be expandable. It might even be modular. But I guarantee you're going to look up who made it. Then you're going to look up at the trail. And almost all of those trails, it's a direct front for a company that goes right back to what most of us see as our main adversary. So make sure to keep track of that. And again, I hope that all of you guys are able to save up and get one. If you're not, again, there's awesome stuff coming in the future. So watch our show, marfooglenews.com/energy, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. All right. Thank you over on DLive. I appreciate Kimbria. Thank you, Badger1, praying for the world because evil in charge. Kimbria, Kelly957, thank you, and thank you. Appreciate that so much. Don White, Colby Wilson, and Mitch Mouth, thank you as well. Don White, you are a top supporter along with Mitch Mouth. Thank you both. I appreciate you. Dex, thank you so much for your service today.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And if you want to watch the news show, all you have to do is click here. Thank you, guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Dex, go ahead.
You had an announcement.
Oh, I almost forgot.
I know you didn't.
I know. We thy dub April Wonder Woman thy mod. Welcome our newest mod, Wonder Woman April, to the roll. Soon to be added to friends. Again, make sure to go check her out. Wonder Woman April has been with us for a long time. She has been a long-time mod over on DLive. She is now being thy dubbed Moderator. Did I see Bones in the house too? That is awesome. We got Turtle Crab Studio. We've got Dr. C-Mac, Colby Wilson, Kevin Schmidt, Alan G, Just Jay,